All right, so I'm back for another one of these playtests, plus recording, and also trying to get my face on camera. I'm not sure if that'll quote unquote help or not, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm back with mono blue. I figured last time I had a mana crypt in opening hand. It's really easy for any deck to look good with a mana crypt. So back for another test. This time, same deal, just going through a playtest, explaining decisions, what I think is best, what I'm going to do. So let's get right into it. So this opening hand, it's a one lander. This time, no mana crypt, so easy pitch back. Really, no question. So I'll take a mulligan. Lagging a bit, but we'll live. Okay, now this is better. So no, oh, and of course you get a free mulligan in Commander. So no blue mana opening hand, but the Sphinx of Foresight represents a scry 3 off the bat. We have opening Soul Ring. So similar to the hand I had with Mana Crypt, very tempted to keep this, especially with a scry 3. All I need is really one blue mana to have this hand be off to the races. So I think I'll keep this, and of course do the Sphinx's upkeep trigger at the beginning of the first up. Yeah, at the beginning of let's see, your first upkeep scry 3. So say I reveal this card, scry 3. 1, 2, 3. And there we go. Trinket Mage, Cavalier, and Land. So Trinket Mage basically gets land since it can get Expedition Map. So the ordering doesn't really matter since we're going to search. But just in case something got countered, I wouldn't want the 5-drop here, so I'm still going to bother the Cavalier. Stack it like Island and Trinket Mage. So draw the Island, land for turn. Unlikely we're going to double blue, but don't think I need to play around strip on turn 1. Generally doesn't happen in Commander. So turn 1, Soul Ring, of course, standard. Not much to explain here. All right, go to next turn. All right, not much thought here. Go to the Reliquary Tower, tap 3. Now, decision point here is Malcolm versus Trinket Mage. I feel like Trinket Mage is a safer play. Once it has entered the battlefield, it's kind of done its deal. It really needs to either counterspell or something like Stifle or Topo Orb to not get its full effect. Malcolm, on the other hand, has to live. And I really don't want to take that risk when we don't have another land drop guaranteed. So leaning towards the Trinket Mage here. Spellseeker is a play, but in a mono blue version of this list, the only thing you could get to indirectly help find mana is either High Tide for a double mana turn. It's not the time for that. Or a Preordain or any type of cantrip, Preordain being the best to dig for land. So that's how I'm going to go with Trinket Mage here. A fish is, I wouldn't consider fish here. Eats up all blue mana, can't even play Trinket Mage, so not the play. So hopefully Trinket Mage resolves, again, for the purposes of these playtests, we'll assume everything resolves. Go get Expedition Map. Although playing on non-play DH mid, Mana Crypt is a consideration here. It's basically a land drop. Although we are constrained on blue mana, so I think I would stick with the Expedition Map here and play the Expedition Map. All right, that's turn. All right, turn 3. All right, good draw. Draw an island. I believe the play here is relatively strong. Fish first. Now, why fish over using the Expedition Map? So using the Expedition Map, we could search, let's see, crack this, go get some land, play it, and then, let's see, still play Malcolm if we didn't play the Mystic or more. Expedition Map, if we leave it vulnerable to maybe an op agent or a spy removal, it's not the end of the world. Yes, we still need land, but if we get Malcolm on the field and have an ongoing fish online, it's very likely this will draw some cards into another land drop. Or if Malcolm doesn't get answered, he can generate mana. And of course, we don't have to keep the fish around if we don't want to. We can definitely choose to sacrifice that. But even though I have an Expedition Map on the field and I couldn't use it, I'd rather start this fish tech, especially on turn 3 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 mana on board. Definitely good to get fish going early. And 3, go for the Malcolm after the fish. And of course, sequencing, want fish to either counterspell since mana at the stage in the game for my deck, mana is more important, or our deck rather. Mana is more important, and as usual, we're loaded with card draw, so rather this be a counter. If Malcolm gets countered, we at least draw a card, so that's fine too. So let's see. 1 mana will go to waste this turn, but that's okay. And Trinket Mage probably swing in for 2. Okay. Purposes of this playtest. Mystic Remora is usually an all-star, usually draw some cards. But let's assume opponents play around it correctly and just don't do anything. So next turn, if I hit next turn, I'll see my next card before I have a chance to pay for the fish. So I'll go through those decisions before I actually take the turn. So the danger, or there is no danger of not hitting a land drop next turn, assuming the board doesn't change. We can pay for the fish with a reliquary tower, crack the ancient tomb. I'm sorry, crack the expedition map to likely go get ancient tomb. Nykthos is a consideration because we have plenty of blue devotion. And actually, Nykthos is probably the better play, so we can play Nykthos. Excuse me, still play the spell seeker. Go get something maybe a counter spell or maybe high tide planning for the future. Although high tide would be a deep investment. I'd rather get probably get a counter spell here, manager, and let's see. 1, 2. If we make a treasure for Malcolm next turn and don't have to use it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's only 6 mana on board. I guess we could then next turn go to combat, swing, get another treasure, and protect the Dazzling Sphinx. We can think about the spell seeker search when it happens, but definitely gonna pay for the fish here. So going to turn 4. Pay for the fish with this, as I said. All right, Dream Eater, okay draw, not the best thing in the world, not the worst. But so pay for fish, keep it around. I'll just put a +1/+1 counter on it. Again, to know the most information, definitely want to go to combat before start using mana. Trinket Mage may or may not get in for damage here. Just leave it back. Malcolm, turn 4 is still likely. Actually makes contact. I'm not going to Sakashima here before combat, although it is a consideration. Let's just think about it. High blowout potential as usual, but it still gets, even if Malcolm dies, can copy the Trinket Mage. 1, 2, let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and okay, Malcolm would have made the first. Or sorry, if we get blown out, that basically eats up the mana for the turn. Trinket Mage copied again, go get mana crib or Everflowing Chalice. Still, I don't think it's worth risking the blowout here, so I'd probably just swing with Malcolm. And once again, I made a Thought Bearer, not a treasure, so let me make a treasure. Okay, main phase 2 here. To crack this map, go search. And given the composition of the hand, I will go ahead and grab Nykthos Planet for the future. If you need to strip mine or something, so be it, but it's definitely a strong play down the line. And again, just trying to be mana efficient. Don't worry, could crack the treasure to play his 4-drop, but not exactly necessary right here. So go get the Spell Seeker. I want to tutor at this point in the game. Again, assuming the Mystic Remora doesn't draw anything, do we have enough mana to tutor a counter spell, feasibly hold up the fish, and then still actually actively advance the board? Let's see. So 2 for the fish. 1, 2, 3, 4. Could play Sakashima and be 1 mana short of having a counter spell up if we didn't draw land. So with that being said, let's look at some of our options. Brainstorm, don't need to dig for land that desperately. Finale, we've got plenty of cards or resources in hand. High Tide doesn't go over the top enough. Let's see, Mana Drain, it's consideration. Preordain, again, don't need to dig for land that badly. It's an option, but not really the best. So I'm thinking I would get Mana Drain here. So again, it's unlikely that Mystic Remora wouldn't have drawn a single card this turn. Actually, I guess by this point in the game. But let's say if we get the Mana Drain, and actually if we pay for his Nykthos Task for 4, 5, 6. So if we so long with Malcolm, that would be 7 mana. We could play the Coast Combat, we could play the Dazzling Sphinx with a counter spell up. So actually, let's get the Mana Drain. Should be solid and go from there. And again, in this playtest, we'll assume that the Remora doesn't draw any cards. Still, with this board state, since I know if I untap, pay for it with this Soul Ring, go to combat, make contact with Malcolm, that's 1, 2. Let's see. And again, Nykthos will tap for 1, 2, 3, 4 mana, 5. I can play Dazzling Sphinx and still hold up a Mana Drain. So that's a solid play, so I would 100% pay for the fish here. So do that with the Soul Ring instead. No land drop is unfortunate. Teferi is a fine draw. Given the state of the board, if creature presence wasn't too heavy, or at least small enough to where Trinket Mage and Spellseeker could be decent blockers, I would play Teferi. If there isn't much chance of him living, I would stick with the original plan of swing Malcolm, get the second treasure, tap Nykthos for blue, and then play the Dazzling Sphinx, which is, in my opinion, is essentially a must-answer threat, and hold a Mana Drain for backup. So again, turn 5, Malcolm usually makes contact. People don't play flyers that much. Make a treasure, tap Nykthos for blue, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Dazzling Sphinx, and it's important to play Sphinx main phase 2, not only because Malcolm has to make his treasure in combat, but because if we want to defend it with Mana Drain, we want to use the boosted mana on our next turn. not get forced into a main phase 2 where we've already tapped our lands. So this is a decent board state. So turn 5, must enter thread, mana generation online, card drawing engine that, again, likely would have been fed by now at this point in the game. So we'll keep moving forward. Regardless of if the Mystic got fed. Actually, I'd probably pay to keep the Mystic around next turn too, because now we're actually getting Devotion, which means Zykthos is going to start going positive on mana pretty fast, and we still have Malcolm online to maintain it. So I think I'll take 2 more turns just to see where the deck gets. I don't have to go to an infinite combo exactly. I just want to show like that the deck is doing what it's supposed to do. Generate a mana advantage, draw cards. Again, this likely would have drawn cards. This will probably do something. So hopefully we'll show that. So going into next turn, I will pay. Oops, sorry, forgot to actually put the counter. So I'll just go ahead and put the counter for next turn as well. I would pay for the fish here. Use Soul Ring or Reliquary Tower. Just have to colorless mana first. Okay, so no land is not exactly great again, but right now there's an associated situation. So we have two flyers that may or may not make contact. If Malcolm could get in and make a treasure, we'd effectively have Nico tap for blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So not hitting land is super unfortunate because with 8, we need 2 more mana. So Malcolm can talk 1, 2, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. With 9 mana, we could overload Cyclonic Rift and protect it with Mana Drain. And if that resolved with a fish in play, it's going to draw so many cards. People have to replay their mana rocks and whatnot. So generally, it's not good to continue missing land drops. We definitely have mana on the field, but non-land permanents can die very easily in Commander, especially at this casual level where people aren't trying to end the game before turn 4 or something. So just for example's sake, I will, let's see, just quickly, just give a spoiler into another deck. Actually, just for the purpose of the mirror match, let's just, or not, for the purposes of example, let's say Dazzling Sphinx in my own deck. Definitely some goodies in there like extra turns, card draw, interaction. But on the flip side, there's definitely some interaction or counter spells that would be a whip on the Sphinx. So swing again, assuming Malcolm makes contact along with the Sphinx. So we get a treasure, and I'll just, in the second wind, I'll just exile from the top until hitting instant or sorcery. See what we get. All right, Brainstorm. So that's a fine, it's a fine card to play. So I'll just leave these cards over here that won't really matter for the playtest. So we'll cast a Brainstorm on this side. 1, 2, 3. No land's pretty unlucky. So we'll put back Kozilek and Sphinx up 4 side, I believe. Unlikely that gets played, so put that back as well. Okay, and Malcolm made a treasure. So let's see. 1, 2, 3. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Did I miscount? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I apologize. I miscounted. So with this position, if the board was, I guess, if enemy board states were big enough to where Cyclonic Rift needs to be actually considered. So turn 6, definitely against decks of a similar strength or greater to this one. This could be a point where Rift needs to happen to bring the game under control, in which case I would definitely advise holding up for it. But if not, and this deck was behind or needed to put on more threats, I would definitely, let's see, so 9 mana. I jam Unesh here with counterspell backup because if Unesh resolves, you can just see the amount of sphinxes we have. Sorry. So let's just go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just go Unesh here. The typical Factor Fiction, we already know 2 of these cards would be the Sphinx and Kozilek. Really digging for land here, getting kind of Mana Star. So that's super unfortunate. So if opponents were savvy on these pals, they would see that Sphinx. This is the most important card. So we should definitely go in the 1, and then these other 3 kind of don't matter. We have nothing in the graveyard for Archimancer. Planeswalker's okay, but no mana on board to actually play him, so Sphinx is more important. In which case, we definitely take the Sphinx because we want the more Unesh triggers. And then, of course, Kozilek with the graveyard, shuffle everything back in. That would happen. Yes, that would happen right after the Factor Fiction resolves. So that happens. And then here, I would be willing to crack the 2 treasures to cast a Sphinx of Foresight. It does take us off a mana drain temporarily, but we can't, we're on 4 lands this turn 6. Yes, we have mana generation, but we need, this deck needs to keep hitting his land drops and putting permanent mana into the field. Because as I said, non-land permanents die so easily. Alright, so now we're going to hit 4 lands in a row. Distribution of Magic. Okay, 2 lands, High Tide and Resculpt. Okay, so smart opponents would have realized we missed a land drop last turn, and we haven't played one yet this turn, so lands are important. But we're going to get one either way. So land and spells would probably be the smart split here. So, oops, the lag. Maybe the computer thought I was holding on to Resculpt and High Tide. So land to spell would be the split, and of course we'd take the land. Take one more land, and then the land in the treasure. This holds up High Tide with us for a 12 power on the board, some chum blockers, multiple problematic permanents, and again, we haven't drawn any cards in this playtest, but Mr. Gamora, again, very problematic permanent, definitely would have done some work by now. And I think, again, for the sake of this playtest, I think I'll just do one more example. If you saw the previous video on this deck, you know that if Unesh is in play and sticks around, things can get out of hand really fast. So go to the next turn. And on this turn, given that Unesh is in play, I let the fish go just to not constrain mana anymore, because I will lead off with Sakashima of 1,000 Faces to copy Unesh. That would see a bunch of cards, and then can probably start storming off with Sphinxes. So we'll let the fish go here. Time Spiral. So with Nykthos on the field, I can definitely go crazy. The only downside is that, okay, and let me get to this. We have a scribe from this Sphinx. The downside of Time Spiral is that this deck wants to accrue card advantage, and at this point, let's see, Dazzling Sphinx drew a card, Spell Seeker tutored a card, this saw more cards, and this saw more cards. We're definitely up on cards compared to our opponents, so we don't want to really neutralize that advantage if we don't have to. And for that reason, I would likely bottom Time Spiral here, even though it could untap with Nykthos and generate a ton of mana. So let's take our Scry draw. Inga. She's okay here, but we definitely have options that will definitely get more cards into our hands, so we don't need to rely on her at this point. So first things first, let's go to combat first. As you can see, most of the creatures that need to attack, they fly. So get in the air. So Malcolm hits treasure. And again, Dazzling Sphinx, I'll just go over here, use the deck in the mirror match. Flip from the top. Okay, Ponder, that's fine. So we'll cast the Ponder. 1, 2, 3. Haven't played a land yet because we're specifically digging for Deserted Temple or Minimo in this case. So with this knowledge, Mana Crypt is good in this situation. So we'll play it as a Mana Crypt. So we'll keep this and draw, just because it's free mana, and mana is definitely what we want right now. So draw, play the Mana Crypt. First, as I said, 1, 2, 3, 4. Play Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, and we'll copy Unesh. So two Uneshes on field. You know what that leads to. So Fact or Fiction number 1. Okay, so 2 lands, Prismatic Lens. Opponents would have known we had taken 2 lands on the last Fact or Fiction. So Sapphire Medallion and Prismatic Lens are the important cards. Sapphire Medallion would make every blue spell cheaper, which could matter in an important way since we're definitely going to be storming this turn a bit. But Prismatic Lens, if we draw into Tidespot Tyrant, this gives infinite colored mana in the event of a Tidespot loop, which we don't have right now. And so this is the consideration of the piles. In this situation, I would actually take. Obviously, I can tell you like the chances of hitting Tidespot, it's in the 79, but let's see. Medallion, go 5. That's very specific. This ramps most spells. I think that wins the game immediately. So I'll probably go with the lens and land right there. I think it has higher upside. All right, second Fact or Fiction. All right, Minimo is perfect. Against the counter spells, so in a non-playtest, obviously these counter spells might have enough, or definitely have more value. But for the purposes, I guess, just on offensive potential, which obviously may seem like bias against the deck, since it's like, of course, in a real game, you probably get interacted with here and there. Interaction would just slow the deck down. A lot of the pieces in here, outside of maybe Unesh, obviously fueling all the Sphinxes, they're pretty redundant, fat, draw cards, see more cards, and while also being threats, so it's all right. Just again, assuming the event of a real game, if something gets disrupted, just play a follow-up piece. Back to the Fact or Fiction. Definitely taking Minimo here. exactly what we were looking for, land to untap. Nick those. Land for turn would be the minimum. And at this point, let's go ahead and tap it for blue, unless we can get another Sphinx before tapping it. I'm going all in. Let's see. So Sphinx costs 4 less. Sphinxes cost 4 less effectively. Let's see. We could do 1 crack a treasure for blue, and then floating a generic. I'll put it in energy, but it'll turn into blue really quickly. So 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7. This inspires Sphinx ran by the Uneshes. Let's put that right here. So that would draw 3. Okay, now drawing Mystical Tutor should basically seal this into the bag. If we go get an extra turn here, barring disruption, we should definitely storm until win con next turn. So let's see. Let's go ahead and respond to the Fact or Fiction with floating a generic up here. Tapping goes for blue. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, Sakashima copies the mana cost of whatever he's copying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 blue mana. Go to 12, activate minimum to untap Nykthos. Go to 10, activate it again. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. All right, 23 mana. Should be more than enough. Okay, so with that 23, use 1 if it's... Again, we have 2. Actually, we could wait. The first Fact or Fiction may reveal the extra turn spell, not when they spend our resources as early. So first Fact or Fiction. All right, and there's a Tide Spout Tyrant. So we're slightly punished. Actually, no, we're rewarded for taking the Prismatic Lens. So now tutoring for the extra turn is actually unnecessary. So I'll 100% take the Tide Spout here. And second Fact or Fiction. Could tutor for a turn here for backup, but with Tide Spout and no disruption, we can basically do whatever we want. All right, we'll take Teferi here, and actually I'll use this opportunity to show how Teferi and Tide Spout can go infinite. So, all right, 23 mana. We use, let's go with 8 of that. Resolve Tide Spout Tyrant. So this card, whenever you play a spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Very busted because you can replay free mana rocks, replay things like Teferi to untap very important permanents, as I will showcase here. Play 5 mana. Cast Teferi. Tide Spout cast trigger. Gonna bounce some mana crypt here. So Teferi enters the battlefield. 5 loyalty. We'll -1 to untap 4 up to 4 target permanents. We'll roll with Nykthos, Minimo, Soul Ring, and an island. Excuse me. Then we'll play the Mana Crypt for free. Actually, no, we won't do that. Or yeah, we can play it for free. With the Tide Spout trigger, we're going to target Teferi, but before that resolves, we'll use the floating mana. Go to 8, tap Nykthos for blue. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So that was 27 mana added. Or I'm sorry, we went to 27 mana. All right. Subtract 3 total to reactivate Nykthos via Minimo. So 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 30, 39, 40, 41, 42. Or 42 mana. So those 2 permanents clearly just generated about, I lose count that fast, but both taps generated about 20 plus mana, and then let's resolve that trigger to bounce Teferi. Use some of that mana, replay them. All right, this time bounce the Mana Crypt except float 2. I'll just keep it in the mana in here because it's all going to go positive. And once again, Teferi comes back in. It's a new Teferi, reset loyalty. Can down tick them to untap all the permanents again and continue that loop to generate infinite mana, and which allows us to loop any permanent spell. Teferi can, what's that called? That's his +1 is Sleight of Hand, effectively the spell. Sleight of Hand our deck, so quote unquote draw our deck. Loop spell seeker, the tutor for whatever you want, finale. Replay the Unes, just the Fact or Fiction, the deck. Inspire Sphinx to draw in lumps. So basically we can see the entire deck, choose how we want to win from there. And again, in the previous video, you can check out because part 1 and 2 of the Mono Blue playtest. May change those names later, but they showcase how we don't, even if we chose to draw the deck, we wouldn't mill out or anything. All right, so I'll wrap this one up. So had a Soul Ring opening hand, so that's probably just as good as Mana Crypt. Okay, a little worse, obviously, and a little worse hand overall. Didn't have as great of a starting hand. also didn't draw as well. But once again, around turns, I expect this deck usually by like turn 6 to 7. If it hasn't won, just to be well on its way to winning if it has not been interacted with whatsoever. And the tests continue to show that. All right, so once again, thanks for tuning in. I'll continue to make these videos, maybe, and jump around to different brews. Definitely want to get an example of this deck without a Soul Ring of Mana Crypt, though, because what deck doesn't look good when you start off 2 turns ahead? All right, thanks for tuning in.